Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Public Safety Solutions for Substance Use Disorder ECHO. My name is Rodolfo Badia, and I'll be facilitating today's session. This ECHO is brought to you by the Center for Substance Use Training and Telementoring, also known as CSTAT, by Be Well Texas, in collaboration with UT Health San Antonio ECHO program. So a few housekeeping items before we begin. We have live closed captioning available for today's session. If you'd like to view closed captioning for the session, please navigate to the bottom of your Zoom window and select the Show Captions option. If you're having trouble accessing captions, please chat our Echo IT Maria. To help with attendance, please enter your name, affiliation, and email in the chat if you have not already. Please remember to stay muted unless you are speaking. We encourage you by joining by video, using the chat and raising your hand feature to post questions and share your perspectives throughout our session today. If you are having any connection issues whatsoever, please privately chat UT Echo Maria for assistance and she will help you. As a note, these sessions are being recorded and will be shared on our website. Therefore, to ensure privacy, no personal health information is allowed at any point during the session. This includes clients' names or patient names, addresses, birth dates, or any other identifiable information. So at the end of the session, the ECHO team will also send out a post-session survey link. We kindly ask that you please complete it as it provides feedback to how to refine these sessions to make it better for you and address your priorities as well. We're approved for CEs for paramedics and any public safety professionals with a behavioral health degree, such as social work or counseling credentials. And then finally, ECHOs in all teach, all learn environments. We encourage everyone to participate in our conversations and raise questions for today. So with that, we'll get started with some of our team introductions. We'll start with Jeremiah. If you could please introduce yourself.
Well, I mean, which Jeremiah, I think, is the issue since we have two of us on due
My
to our
apologies.
No, no, not your fault. It's a little moment of Zoom confusion. I'll present for me, and then Brandon, the other me, can go. Um, I'm Jeremiah Golka. I'm the executive director of the Shield Training Initiative. We do occupational health and safety trainings for police, first responders, criminal justice professionals, focused on their work responding to the overdose crisis to make them help them be safer, improve their outcomes, be more efficient, effective, efficient, etc. Thanks. Over to I'll bump it over to other Jeremiah, also known as Professor Brandon Del Pozo.
Hey, no, thanks, Jeremiah. Jeremiah shared the link with me. I'll go find my link. I'm Brandon Del Pozo. I'm an assistant professor of medicine and public health at Brown University. I served as a police officer for 23 years, 19 in the New York City Police Department, and 4 as the chief of Burlington, Vermont, where I shifted my interests from purely criminal justice to behavioral health and how that plays out in our communities. It's nice to see everybody.
Thanks so much, Brandon. There we go. Next up, we'll have our Dr. Miramontes. If you could please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Dave Miramontes. I'm the medical director for the San Antonio Fire Department. I'm an associate clinical professor at UT Health. We provide a wide range of addiction referral and treatment services, including an EMS-based buprenorphine program.
Thank you, Dr. Miramontes. Cynthia Mendiola, if you could please introduce yourself.
Good morning. Yes, thank you everyone for being here. My name is Cynthia Mendiola. I am a retired federal probation officer. My specialty in that area was substance abuse and mental health, evidence-based practices and core correctional practices. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to have our presenters.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I would like to have our didactic presenter introduce themselves as well. Dr. Gerber, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning still for you all. I'm in California, so I'm always never totally familiar with the timing. My name is Dr. Garland Gerber. I am a psychotherapist in private practice and also a research scientist at Northeastern University School of Law. My research is the intersection of the criminal legal system and substance use disorder and substance use related stigma. I am here to present on trauma and substance use disorder. I'm also a person with lived experience, formerly incarcerated, and struggled with mental health and substance use for too many years. And so I bring the lens of researcher, clinician, and person with lived experience, and I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gerber. We're so happy to have you here and look forward to your presentation in a little bit. Thank you so much. I'd also like to introduce our case presenter for today. Edward, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Edward Lopez. I am a U.S. probation officer in San Antonio, Texas. I am a national STAR coach, which is the U.S. probation's, I guess, version of core correctional practices. And I'm also a CNVC, criminogenic violence needs coordinator for the Office of San Antonio.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edward. And we look forward to discussing your case with you as well later on in our session. So thank you all. With that, just like to remind everyone, if you have not already, please feel free to put your name, affiliation, and email in the chat just for our record purposes. We would really, really appreciate that. So with that, we'll get started with our didactic presenter. As Dr. Gerber mentioned, she'll be presenting on recognizing the signs of trauma and SUD in adolescents. Dr. Gerber, once your slides are shared by our IT team, please feel free to begin. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. I think we need to change that. Perfect. All right. As I said, my name is Dr. Garland Gerber. I am here to speak about exploring how trauma and substance use intersect in adolescence and how public safety professionals can better recognize and respond to these challenges. I'm going to start with a brief visualization, but first I will go through the disclosures. So next slide, please. So I want to clarify, I have no financial relationships that can influence this presentation. The information that I share today is based on research and best practices in trauma-informed care. The opinions expressed are my own and do not reflect the official stance of UT Health San Antonio. Next slide, please. So by the end of this session, you will have a deeper understanding of how trauma and substance use interact, how to identify behavioral indicators and other indicators, and what resources exist to support adolescents in any type of crisis, including substance use related crises. This is not just about recognizing the problems, but it's also about knowing how to respond in a way that leads to short-term better outcomes and long-term better outcomes. So with that, I will start with our visualization. Okay. So you can close your eyes, you can keep them open, whatever feels good for you. I usually like to do visualization when I am stepping into a psychotherapy role or any sort of role where I'm interfacing with people who are quote unquote difficult populations, because I think it is very beneficial to tap into that empathy and that ability to understand where the other person is coming from. So close your eyes, keep them open, take a deep breath in, exhale slowly, and allow yourself to settle into a place of calm. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable, and I want you to start imagining yourself as an adolescent once again. You're standing in front of the mirror. You're looking at your own reflection. You see yourself at maybe 14, 15, maybe 16. And it's that time of life when everything feels uncertain. It's exciting, it's overwhelming, all at once, your body is changing, your emotions are shifting on a dime, and the world around you feels both thrilling and very confusing. This is also a time of life where you're starting to realize that your parents are just people. And Friends start becoming more important. Imagine your relationship with yourself, your home life. Now imagine walking into school. You hear voices and locker slamming and footsteps. You feel the weight of expectations from teachers and parents and friends. Maybe there's a pressure to perform or to fit in or stand out. And as you move through your day, you remember how emotions come and go. One moment you might feel invincible and you're laughing with friends, you're dreaming about the future, and then the next moment, a comment or a failure sends you through a moment or a long moment of self-doubt. You might feel misunderstood, unheard, trapped in a world where adults expect you to know everything and do as they say. Now picture a difficult moment. If you can picture something that was very difficult for you during that time, maybe it's an argument at home or rejection from a friend or loneliness, and your mind is searching for a way to cope. You want relief, escape, something to take the edge off, perhaps. And you're seeking escape through risk-taking, avoidance, substance use. And in that moment, or in those moments, what do you need most? Validation, safety, someone to just listen? Take a deep breath in and slowly let it go. And we're stepping back into the present. And I want you to carry with you that sense of your younger self, a sense of compassion for the adolescents that you may encounter today, whether they're your own at home or in work. And remember what it feels like to be in their shoes, that uncertain, vulnerable, searching for direction. And if you have your eyes closed, you can open them, take this awareness forward as you engage with young people. Okay, so now we will get started. I usually like to just have a baseline understanding of some of the topics that we're discussing today. So the first one is trauma. Remember that trauma is more than just a one-time event. It is actually a lived experience that shapes how people respond to the world. It can stem from abuse, neglect, violence, systemic factors like poverty and discrimination. And also, if we are dealing with highly sensitive kids, it can be, something that someone said, that feeling of rejection or loneliness. And adolescents who experience trauma often develop coping mechanisms. And most of the time it's things like substance use in order to numb the pain or regain control in situations where they feel powerless. Next slide, please. Okay, baseline understanding of adolescence. So adolescence is a time of significant transformation. Emotionally, physically, cognitively, the brain is still very much developing, particular areas that regulate decision making, the frontal lobe, impulse control. So this means that adolescents are more likely to take risks, struggle with emotional regulation, and respond intensely to stress. These are behaviors that oftentimes we sort of joke or poke fun about. But imagine not being able to have the brain maturity to be able to regulate yourself and understand and manage and control these changes. So when you combine this with trauma, it amplifies the challenges and increases the likelihood of substance use. So next slide, please. Okay, so these numbers highlight the strong connection between trauma and substance use. So as you can see, over 2/3 of adolescents experience trauma before the age of 16. Those with ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, are significantly more likely to use substances, often as a coping mechanism. You also involving some justice system statistics, up to 90% of youth have been exposed to some sort of trauma. And this isn't just a small problem, it's a widespread issue affecting the majority of youth who come into contact with public safety professionals. So we always want to be mindful that most of the time, if you are engaging with an adolescent, there is some sort of history of trauma. Next slide, please. Okay, excuse me. Adolescents between 16 and 24 have the highest contact with law enforcement of any other age group, often during high-risk moments. I want to recognize, I know that we are not focused on racial disparities, but I would be remiss if I did not point out the racial disparities in these interactions that can actually compound the effects of trauma. And this is obviously the intersection of social determinants as well. What I want to point out here is that compounding the effects of trauma oftentimes leads to mistrust and fear. So we have to understand where an individual is coming from. It may have nothing to do with you. It might be a previous experience that they've had, someone in their household that represents authority. And so remembering to to step outside of yourself and understand what you represent to an adolescent or an individual. Even a single arrest can derail a young person's life, decreasing their likelihood of graduating and increasing the chances of future justice involvement. This is why trauma-informed approaches matter, because the way we engage with youth can shape their future. Next slide, please. So, trauma rewires the brain. We have learned and know much more about how trauma operates and actually dysregulates and changes brain functioning, particularly in the areas responsible for the areas that are most sensitive during adolescence, which is impulse control, emotional regulation, and logical executive thinking. Adolescents with trauma may respond with fight, flight, or freeze reactions that seem irrational. I mean, if you have an adolescent in your house or you're familiar with adolescents, they oftentimes seem irrational with or without trauma, but you can imagine how this must look if you're dealing with an adolescent who has past or extreme trauma experiences. But these are actually just survival mechanisms. When substances are introduced, they further impair judgment and increase impulsivity, making interactions more unpredictable. Understanding these biological responses helps us avoid, and this is, I think we all have the same goal, is that we want to avoid misinterpreting trauma and understanding that reactions as defiance or criminal behavior may just be a reaction to past experiences. Next slide, please. Okay, so many adolescents, maybe this is your story, maybe this is a story of someone that you know or love and care for, but many adolescents do not have healthy coping mechanisms. So oftentimes they turn to substances to numb emotional pain or escape stressful environments. And while this might offer temporary relief, it leads to long-term consequences, including struggling with addiction, legal issues, and worsening mental health. So the goal isn't just to stop substance use, it's to actually address the underlying trauma that drives it. Next slide, please. Okay, So we're going to get into a bit of the behavioral indicators. So adolescents experiencing trauma and substance use often display behavioral, I call them behavioral red flags, such as aggression, avoidance, and extreme compliance. The thing here that's so difficult with adolescents is that I think these are baseline behaviors anyways. But if you're seeing repeated behaviors or things that are a bit out of the ordinary in what we're seeing with adolescents, this is oftentimes a big indicator. They, again, very common for adolescents, but on a different level, they may distrust authority, lash out when they feel threatened, or completely shut down. So recognizing these signs allows public safety professionals to approach situations with more understanding and more patience. Next slide, please. So here we have some physical indicators. The physical signs of trauma and or substance use may include poor hygiene. Again, I want to just point out, this is common for adolescents in general anyways, but I think it's important to look at repeated or things that are somewhat out of the ordinary of what you're going to see with adolescents, or quote unquote adolescents without major physical indicators. So there's signs of malnutrition. Oftentimes this may be associated with substance use and or any sort of eating disorders, and also unexplained injuries. You may also notice intoxication symptoms, like slurred speech, drowsiness, withdrawal symptoms. Oftentimes these indicators can help differentiate between a criminal act and a health crisis requiring medical intervention. Next slide, please. So trauma affects emotional regulation. As we saw, there are various parts of the brain that get affected and dysregulated when experiencing a single trauma or complex trauma, multiple traumas over time, that lead to extreme mood swings, paranoia, or emotional detachment. This is also a very, very vulnerable time for certain mental health crises. I also want to point out that adolescents fear authority figures in general, but oftentimes may misinterpret situations as threats or appear completely numb to what's happening. These are coping mechanisms and many times not a sign of disrespect. And so I urge everyone who works with adolescents and people who struggle with trauma and substance use to approach lightly and with empathy. Next slide, please. Okay, social and environmental indicators. I think in my work with teens, this has been the most telling sign. As I mentioned, behavioral and physical indicators, adolescents in general, it can be hard to identify those because, teens are notorious for perhaps not taking a shower or, being unkept. But social and environmental indicators are the biggest predictors that I see as a psychotherapist working with teens. The social environment of an adolescent can tell you a lot about their risk factors. So oftentimes, teens who are found in high-risk locations, associating with older individuals, showing signs of houselessness, or struggling with deeper issues. So addressing the root causes rather than just the behavior can lead to more effective interventions. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so why do these matter? I think we can flip through these slides, and a lot of this is either common sense, or, as I said, maybe hard to identify because adolescents have a lot of these indicators in general. But recognizing these indicators isn't just about making an observation, it's about responding appropriately. The way that you interact, the way that you respond with a teen is going to make a world of difference. By identifying these signs early, public safety professionals can help prevent unnecessary arrests because as you saw, an initial arrest can have long-term outcomes for teens. Adults as well, but particularly for teens. I think it sets a narrative and it sets a path that is more influential for an adolescent than an adult. Also, de-escalating situations, which is difficult to do with teens in general, but absolutely vital when you're interacting with adolescents. And then connecting adolescents with resources. So oftentimes you can look at this as prevention. Although you might be interacting or already having an initial interaction with an adolescent with trauma and or substance use, the way that you respond and the way that you connect to resources can truly, truly make a difference. When we work with little ones, we often say, and the research shows, that it only takes one person. It only takes one person, one stable, one safe individual to change the trajectory of a child. And the same goes with adolescents. So, if you think back when we did the visualization of your moments or time in adolescence, perhaps you can think about that one person, whether it was a teacher, a coach, a counselor. For me, it was a gentleman named Officer Dresser, who was a police officer, but oftentimes we would hang out on a street and he would come by at about 10 or 11 p.m. at night. And he didn't, he told us, okay, guys, you got to break it up. But he also spent time with us. He talked to us. He wanted to know why we were out there at midnight on a Friday night. He asked if we needed rides home. And so I just want to identify that you can be that one person for the adolescents that you interact with. Oh, 5 minutes left. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Effective strategies, using trauma-informed communication, de-escalation techniques, building trust can change the outcome of interactions with youth, minimizing, and this is where I think it's hard work, but it's important to keep in mind. We want to minimize re-traumatization. The world around an adolescent might be traumatizing them, but if you can do anything to minimize the re-traumatization in order to avoid unnecessary force, recognizing past experiences with authority figures, and just simple adjustments in communication, speaking calmly, explaining actions before taking them can oftentimes prevent escalation and build cooperation. Next slide, please. Again, recognizing and de-escalating, recognizing if they're in fight, flight, or freeze. So, some people cope outwardly, some people cope inwardly. So identifying, okay, is this adolescent that I'm interacting with? And these are great skills for if you have a teen or an adolescent in your house. Am I seeing this individual in fight mode? Am I seeing this individual in flight mode? Or are they being silent and unresponsive? And how might I be able to better respond to open the door as opposed to close it? Next slide, please. Okay, so minimizing re-traumatization. Avoid unnecessary use of force unless it's absolutely necessary for safety. Remember, the engagement, the interaction will have lasting effects, both in behaviorally and psychologically. Be mindful of past negative experiences with authority figures. Perhaps there's some abuse going on at home. Perhaps people are not used to having a healthy communication. And then also explain your actions before you take them. This this works wonders with teens as a psychotherapist. I explain things before I do them, say them. And I think what it does is it provides an individual, an adolescent, with a feeling of safety, and a predictability, right? Because you don't have much control as an adolescent. So the more you know, the more control you feel like you have, or an understanding. Next slide, please. Building trust and rapport. So important. Building relationships is such an important skill in the work that we all do. Use their name. Ask open-ended questions instead of accusations. Find a common ground. Connect with them. What kind of music do you like? Do you play any sports? What school do you go to? And acknowledge their experiences, that they may have reasons for distrusting adults. Next slide, please. Okay, and know when to refer to mental health or substance use resources. I have a slide here for national resources because I know that we're all in different locations, but recognize when a situation requires professional support as opposed to public safety intervention. Have a list of local resources available for youth that you think might have some trauma and substance use related issues, and encourage voluntary cooperation with community services. Next slide, please. Here are the national resources. I'm happy to share these slides, or you can take a photo or whatever you might need for national resources that you can better educate yourself and also locate referral sources. Next slide, please. Okay, so I don't think we have time, and we're going to have a discussion anyways, but I like to always sort of put into practice. This is a scenario about a 16-year-old runaway under the influence. We can discuss it, but I will go to the next slide so that you can see how to actually utilize trauma-informed insight. So recognizing the adolescent may be reliving past trauma. The substance use actually exacerbates, and there's my timer, exacerbates the fear, fight or flight response, and then utilizing a calm, non-confrontational approach. Maybe sitting down with them, creating an environment and a vibe of safety and empathy can oftentimes reduce escalation. Next slide. Okay, so here's some examples of non-threatening language. We're here to help you. I can understand that, you might be scared. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Let's take a seat and sit down. I'm not here to hurt you. Validate their distress. I understand this is really scary. Let's talk this through. These are my plans. I don't want to, throw you in the back of the car or, call your parents at this time. Let's just talk and figure out what you might need. Next slide, please. These are my references in case you're interested in doing any reading. And next slide. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Gerber, for this great presentation. I know I really appreciated the exercise at the beginning of your presentation to really center us, reflect, and hopefully remind us of how far we've come as well. So thank you for that. Is there any questions or discussions or comments from the Learning Network for Dr. Gerber? Thank you, Melissa. She loves it. It was a great presentation. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I have a comment, Dr. Gerber, and I appreciate your story, Dr. Gerber. That's really important to see where you come from and how you apply that to your career.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to know what you're telling us. It's very real, and that it continues to travel into the person's adult life.
Yes.
And so I think that a lot of the things that you're saying here, that trauma doesn't go away; it just continues to be. It either gets worse or it has never been handled with. And as adults, we're dealing with these people as well in that area.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think the reason why I love doing the visualization is because conceptually we can talk about it, we can think about it, we can process it, but putting ourselves in that time of life, and I think we all have experienced the roller coaster of adolescence, right? In some way, shape, or form. And so understanding that oftentimes, if you think about it, some of the stuff that we're battling now as adults came with us from adolescence. And so the earlier we can intervene, the earlier we can process, the earlier we can provide resources, the better the chance that we will not be engaging with public safety officials later as adults.
Of course. Thank you so much, Dr. Gerber and Cynthia, for that. These slides will be shared post-session communications. Dr. Gerber, there is a question in the chat. I do need to move our session forward. So if you could please, if you're able to answer that for Holly, that would be appreciated. Thank you so much for your presentation. At this point, I'd like to move to our announcements. Maria, could you please share the announcement slides? Perfect. So first slide up, to claim your CEUs, you must complete the post-session survey in the chat or by email sent after this session. Complete the post-session survey and select yes on the question of are you applying for CEUs credits for today's ECHO session. Your certificate of completion will be sent to you in 2 to 3 weeks after the session date. If you have any questions, email bwelltexas@uthscsa.edu. Next slide, Maria. So starting next month, our public safety echo will be accessed from our new iEcho platform. Andrea Hebler, who's our coordinator for this session, will briefly guide you through the iEcho. Andrea?
Yes. First, I want to make sure that you all can see my website.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Just very quickly, I wanted to give you a little tour of the new iEcho platform. So this will be the home page or the main page that you land as soon as you log in. Most important thing to understand is that we have to register into the page for us to be able to have access to all these incredible trainings. If you look here on the right side of the page, all these are all the current echoes that I'm attending right now. That means echoes not just in Texas and the United States, but in other countries on different topics. So all these echoes are available to you just by registering and being part of the iEcho platform. So I am showing you this because as
Andrea, you're
Rodell
not sharing your screen. You're not sharing your screen, Andrea.
Is not?
Nope.
Okay.
We see her
No,
screen.
you are.
Can you see it now?
Yes,
We
see
can
her
see
screen.
your screen. We see the program page. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Just wanted to make sure before I move some to other parts. If you see here where it says new announcements, these are all the trainings that I'm currently enrolled, all the other echoes. When you enroll in each one or when you register in each one of these programs, you will receive notification, email reminders, approximately 60 minutes before or 30 minutes before each session. But the reason why we need to register here on this platform is because starting next month, our Public Safety Solutions for Substance Use Disorders ECHO is going to take place from this platform. And you're going to see that there's so many advantages. For instance, if I go here to view more, in my case, I see here all the programs that I have registered, that I'm registered on. And for example, when you come, let's say, to this program, Systems and Sustainability, I can see here the schedule. So I see the title and the topics of the coming sessions. This will give you the opportunity, well, to know what's coming and see if you're interested. So our goal is to have at least 6 of these sessions uploaded for each one of the programs. Also, when we come to content, you will be able to access the PDF and the materials, the learning materials that we distributed during the sessions. There are many, many other advantages, but like I said, the most important one is that by registering on this new platform, you'll have access to so many incredible trainings that the iEcho Institute has everywhere in the world. But more to come. We'll send you an email with more information after this session with instructions on how to log in. Thank you. I think that's enough. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrea, to walk us through. And like we mentioned, we'll definitely send out more detailed instructions as we get closer to our next session in March. So with that, let's move on for our case presentation today. Maria, thank you for bringing up the case. Edward, if you could please briefly walk us through your case today.
Yes, I'm a probation officer here in San Antonio. I had a person under my supervision come to me to the office to address some issues he was having, substance abuse issues, along with not attending treatment as instructed. The overall contact went well. A lot of the stuff that Professor Gerber went through is exactly the way we deal with individuals, kind of like what Cindy was saying, empathetic, rapport building, trying to get them to understand that we're here because of behaviors, not because they're bad people. So being able to get them to see that from my side of the desk, I'm seeing non-compliance and trying to help them understand where that non-compliance is coming from. So we first would like to kind of look at the behavior, let them know that it's not acceptable, whatever the behavior is. In this case was drug use and not attending treatment. I let them know that this is something that's in their power to fix. And then after that, we go ahead and try to find ways to help the person understand how to change the thoughts that might have led to that behavior. So that's where our CNVC materials come in, where it's more cognitive based understanding of how decisions are made. So we kind of go over that process with the individual, really depending on how fluent and how comfortable the officer is with these techniques. You see varying results. A lot of the people that I talk to about these things, they know they're getting in trouble, but when they leave, they understand that it's in their power to change whatever happens here. So I try to get the people to understand that. The rapport building, I think, is the most important thing when you're working with somebody. Being able to get them to understand that I have a job to do, yes, but some of my stuff is to kind of help you get through whatever issues you're going through, to give you, like Dr. Gerber said, to the right resources in the community, to kind of get them to see why those are important for them, and to get them to see how that decision process happens. Most of them don't understand. They're really emotionally driven. The presentation about adolescents and how to deal with them, it's very similar and dealing with adult people in the system too. So we see the trauma. We see how they use drugs to do that. In this case, that's what happened here. This person ended up after a while just telling me he's really stressed, overwhelmed, depressed. He can't find work. He's trying real hard. He's having outside issues. He's having father trying to get money from him. He's having all these just outside things going on. And he just felt like mentally shutting down. So I try to get him to understand that that I understand what's going on, that I can empathize with that, but we still need to fix some of these things that are happening. So with that being said, I reinforce the fact that treatment is needed and necessary for him to get better. I also referred this person to one of our programs here in San Antonio for mental health evaluation, since he reached out with anxiety and depression. So I wanted to make sure that at least he sees that there's something going on that's going to help him get better. After going over those issues, I kind of delved into the cognitive part of the decision-making process. In this case, I helped him recognize high-risk thoughts, trying to get him to understand how those high-risk thoughts lead to behavior like drug use, like deciding not to go to treatment, or any other behavior that he knows he should or shouldn't be doing, right? So after that, I kind of got him to see that connection. My hope was for him to see that connection. I provided him a document, a homework. We went over this sheet, and I tried to get him to kind of reflect on things that he's doing, and trying to get him to recognize the high risk thoughts, the things that are getting him in trouble, and how he could change those thoughts to make better decisions. After that, the office contact ended. It probably took it didn't take very long, maybe 30 minutes, 35 minutes, somewhere around there. I had a really good rapport with this person, so it was easy to kind of get that. And I built that rapport from the beginning of the supervision. So it was easy for me to kind of get into the issues that I needed to address with this person over time. So again, a lot of the stuff that Dr. Gerber said is it's true for adults. It's true. I mean, trauma doesn't just leave. And being able to recognize and empathize and give people that hope, I think is it's important, especially on the community supervision side.
Thanks so much, Edward, for this case. Now, I'd like to open it up to the floor. Are there any questions or comments from our team or learning network for Edward?
I have a question, Edward. In your work with this
Yes.
individual, do you find it important to convey some of the things that you've discovered, in establishing your rapport and getting all this information from that person, sharing that information with the treatment individuals, like the counselors or the therapists that you're referring them to?
Yes. Yes,
And
when we have our staffings with the treatment providers, we kind of make sure that we're able to convey that information to them.
do you find it that that kind of information, for example, some of the major depression and anxiety, and then maybe it sounds like he was self-medicating, maybe some of those issues and trauma, is that important to be able to stay in connection with the therapist, to know that everybody's working towards the same goal to help this individual in that process?
Yes, especially sharing what I'm doing with the individual with the treatment provider, so they can kind of see the the way that I'm dealing with situations, so we can kind of work together. Um, I tend to be working a lot on the cognitive level, so I like to tell the treatment providers I'm working on people recognizing emotions and thoughts and how they deal with behavior, especially when I'm seeing people that have indications of trauma. I'm trying to get them to understand how trauma affects their decision making, how trauma affects the way they think, how trauma affects where you go from one point to another. So I try to convey as much information as I can to the treatment provider to give them what they need to add on to what I'm already doing in the office.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Brandon. I was going to ask how folks address the issue of marijuana use now. That was like the principal substance that the client admitted to using. And I'm just curious, the landscape around marijuana use is shifting. It's obviously legal in many states now and used recreationally, but yet it's still a means for concern in parole and probation. Like how does that conversation go with the client if they say like I'm doing something that's legal in most places? You see what I'm saying? It's kind of a general
Yes,
question about how to approach marijuana use.
I get that question a lot actually. I get the usual, what's legal in Colorado, why can't I use it here? The usual answer I give to that is, well, we're living in Texas, not in Colorado. So those are some issues that we got to address. There's laws here that we need to abide by. So getting them to understand that this this place where we're living right now doesn't allow for the recreational use of marijuana. I can't change that. You can't change that. So we need to find other ways around that. I kind of trying to empathize with the fact of if you're self-medicating, there's other ways to get around that. So um, I don't try to belittle that idea, but I try to give them the reality of the idea. And we're living in a state where that's just not possible. And if it was, we wouldn't be having this problem, but it isn't. Now, I don't know how other states in the Fed system are handling that. I'd heard from colleagues in Colorado that that one's real hard to kind of that, but a lot of that also comes with judicial preference. There's some judges here in San Antonio that really don't see marijuana use as something. I mean, they see the legitimate medicinal use for marijuana. But not all judges have that same thought. So judicial preference also plays a role in how this works out. So there's a lot of things that are outside of people's control that especially when you're on supervision, I try to get them to see. I mean, it's out of our control. This is where we're at. So um, I mean, that's
And
about the only thing I can say.
it sounds like that the judges at least have a bit of discretion because I was just looking it up. It's not just we bring up Colorado because we're of an age where that was the pioneer state, but it's legal medicinally in 39 of 50 states, so almost everywhere, and then half the
Mhm.
states it's legal recreationally. I just think it'll get more complicated to thread this needle as time goes on.
No, I
I think
agree.
I think it's important. I'm sorry, Edward, to interrupt you, but I think it's important
Mhm.
to understand that, just like alcohol, it's legal, right? But when we're in community supervision and we're working with individuals that are like breaking the law using marijuana, I think the issue is deeper than that. And I think that what we need to do is work with individuals to say, look, let's not talk about legal or not legal. How does this affect your life? And, for example, if somebody's drinking and it's legal, but on supervision, you can't drink excessively. Well, what makes something excessive? And at that point, let's look at what are the underlying problems because of your use, and why aren't you looking at what are the consequences that would result because of that? It's just like any other behavior is the way I try to treat it, as far as community supervision.
No, I think that's really insightful, and it sounds like it. When I say it sounds right, I'm just giving that's my opinion, right? It's not. I don't use marijuana to be candid. I'm not like some advocate for this. It just seems more complicated, and I like the idea that it's the what is it a signal of? What is the underlying reason that's motivating you to use it? How does that affect your employment, your anxiety, maybe the risk of recidivism? Rather than like it's illegal, can't use it. I think that kind of actually stymies you sometimes from getting at the heart of why they're using the substance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I'm
oh,
sorry.
oh, I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to
Doctor.
add that you're also helping an individual early on learn how to problem solve in an efficient way. Saying you can't or you can't, it's legal, it's not legal, although correct, you want to help them build the neural pathways, if you will, to say why am I doing this? What is it helping me or hurting me? And the behavior change that will come at some point, but learning how to approach a problem effectively is ideally a skill for life.
And we definitely try to teach that in the office when we're talking about marijuana use. I know the people's like, oh, I use marijuana, I'm going to jail. That's usually not the case. So in our office, we get a positive UA. Most people don't go to jail for their first positive UA. This is where we start working on that decision-making process. We start working on how to solve and cope with issues. That's when we start thinking about what services do I have to offer. Um, our office is really big into cognitive restructuring. So we start looking at, okay, we're making thoughts, you're having these thoughts, they're leading to behaviors. Let's understand these thoughts. Why are you having these thoughts? And a lot of that leads to what you talked about today. Dr. Gerber talks about trauma from the past, talks about things that went bad. I mean, you see that coming out, but no one's asked them. So if the PO is effective enough, you'll get the information you need to start making the change. But I think with the laws being what they are, those are things we can't change. So trying to be able to work within the law, but still make the changes that are necessary for people to change their behavior, I think is where we're caught right now in between. Because people want strict law enforcement. I want to feel safe, but they also don't want to build prisons. They want this, but they don't want that. So being able to kind of recognize, well, which one do you want? Do you want me to help the people or do you want me to lock them up? Which one are you asking me to do? And I think that's the hardest thing for any person working in community supervision is being able to ride that thing. I can't be too much law enforcement, even though people want to feel safe, but also need to be here to provide a meaningful opportunity to change. And you're constantly riding that seesaw. So being able to handle that, I think, becomes easier when you use tools like what we talked about here, the rapport building, the cognitive restructuring. That makes that a little easier because I'm helping the individual understand that you control your behavior and you control these outcomes. I can help you make better decisions. I can help you make better outcomes if you let me. If you take what I'm giving you, if you attend your treatment, if you take the medication that's here to help you. But I can't do that for you. So providing them that autonomy, that respect, and that understanding that they control what they do. I can't control you. You control what you do, but I can help you make better decisions if you let me.
Of
That's
And I
course.
think
actually
that's
something I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's actually something that we talked about in group today. We talked about our thoughts, our overthinking. We talked about the cognitive behavior therapy, but we also talked about this worksheet that Smart Recovery has. It's called cost analysis. Like, if you have this thought and you're going to process this way, what's the outcome? As opposed to if you have the same thought and you don't do it the way that you normally did, what's the what's the outcome with that? And, we went through different scenarios. We had to talk about different grounding techniques and what we would have to go through to be able to change the scenario that we're used to doing. Because our body's actually going to go back to default back to those behaviors without even thinking about it. But if we're actually shown, hey, this is what happens if you do this way, look at what the repercussions are, as opposed to if you follow through with it the other way.
Of course. Thanks so much, Amy,
yeah,
for sharing.
I think teaching self-awareness, I think is key. Because most people, like you said, people will revert back to their first statements, right? But they revert back because no one's ever really told them, well, why is that actually happening? How did that process happen? And being able to help break that down for them is key to changing behavior. And I think that's why it's important to go over trauma, to go over their thinking patterns, to get them to see how negative thinking leads to negative behavior. And most people that do cost benefit analysis, this they say one thing, they want one thing, but they don't want to put the work in to get there. So being able to kind of show them how to do that work, I think is key for if you want community corrections to work the way it's supposed to.
Of course. And that kind of volleys over to Holly's question in the chat as well. So, Holly, I'm hoping you could unmute and ask it. I know we have it in the chat, but it's an opportunity for you to
Yeah,
ask it.
so I was seconding the issue around marijuana use, because it's a psychoactive substance and can just like slow or affect higher cognitive processes while they're using it. How does their use of that affect how you approach your cognitive practices towards them?
Well, with the marijuana use, I've noticed that it tends to be one of two things. Either I'm really stressed out or I'm bored. So trying to get them to kind of understand that when you use marijuana, it doesn't allow you to make the best decision for you. It kind of shades that ability, like you said, it slows down the cognitive structuring, right? And usually what will happen with that is you start doing something punitive, not jail, but just like, hey, you got to come see every week now. Oh, we got to take more UAs. Oh, we got to do this. So I'm trying to get them to see that connection of behavior that I become more stringent if the behaviors become more repetitive. But I'm still trying to work on how can we make that better? How can we kind of get them to understand that this can go away if you can help me change if I can help you change that decision making process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edward. In the interest of time, I would like to volley it over to Cynthia, who's our lead specialist for today, just to summarize the main points of our case presentation and recommendations if they came up as well.
Yes, awesome training. I think there was a great connection with Dr. Gerber's lecture, knowing that that there are there's trauma and how that influences substance use behaviors, and also how children and youths develop ineffective coping mechanisms or have these coping mechanisms that aren't very effective as they go through life. And some of the things that she provided us with is just validation and reminders about how to be empathetic and to save time, not save time, but to provide the time for understanding, knowing that all of this trauma, it affects the brain development, and it goes on into what are some more effective strategies to use with the adolescents. But I also want to say that those same things occur as we engage people in the community supervision section also in that stage, because a lot of those things that she talked about aren't worked on. And so we get those individuals still using those ineffective coping skills or coping mechanisms and needing to have to learn some new skills. Probably had some problem solving, but missing steps in how to have effective problem solving skills. So I think it was a great session. I think it connected really well and helped us to understand, how the different strategies that are used with adolescents can also be effective with adults.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for this. And again, thank you, Edward, for bringing this case up and creating this great discussion within our learning network. Also, Dr. Gerber, I think your presentation tied in really well with the case, and we appreciate your comments throughout the session as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining our ECHO session today. As a reminder to earn credits, please complete the post-session survey using the link in the chat. It's also will be included in our post-session communications along with our slides today. If you'd like to present a case, please email the BeWell team at bewelltexas@uthscsa.edu. We look forward to seeing you on our next session through the new iEcho platform on Thursday, March 13th at 11 a.m. Central. We hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Happy early Valentine's Day to everyone. And hope everyone takes care. We'll be in touch next session. Take care. Bye-bye.